Hey everybody, welcome back to Sounds Like a Drum, Cadence Independent Media production. This week we are back in hack mode again, and we are doing an extension of one we did a little while back. We're talking about more things to do with tinfoil. If you've been watching along, you may have seen us do a little bit of a John Bonham-inspired experiment with putting tinfoil around the inside of the bass drum the other day and seeing what it does to the sound, seeing what it does to the tone, sustain, all that stuff. True to form, some people were curious about the rest of the kit, so that's the party that we're doing today. We're going to do the snare and both of the toms and not the bass drum. The bass drum's going to be normal today, but everything else is going to be all aluminum foiled up. Not a whole lot else to say about this. We're doing literally what we did last time, which is we are using a little bit of tape to basically, as tightly as we can, but not extremely tightly, adhere a layer of it to the inside of the shells of all of these drums without touching the heads at all. So there's no physical interaction. This is about reflectivity. This is about canceling out those reflections or modifying them and seeing what it does to the overall sound of the drum. If you haven't seen the episode with the bass drum portion of this long form experiment, you could check it out right here, or you can watch this one and then go and watch that one. First off, to get a baseline level here, we're going to do everything without the tinfoil in it, so we'll kind of start with the snare, work our way around, and then we'll come right back. All right, so that's how they sound. We're gonna foil them up. Here we go. Now, first off, it's worth saying that when you're miking drums, the experience of listening to them through microphones and headphones or your stereo is a little different than how it sounds right where I am right here. I, like you may, I am able to hear that there's tinfoil in the drums a little bit. We discovered this when we did the bass drum the other day. If you really went super hard with cleanly adhering it to the whole inside of the drum, you would alleviate that. But largely, it's way quieter than the sympathetic snare buzz to hit any of the rest of the drums. So in terms of it interfering in like a playing situation, and particularly a live situation, which is, I think, where I would imagine doing this, really not that big of a deal, but there is a little bit of kind of like crunchy noise in there. Basically what we're noticing here is a sort of specific attenuation of the high end and the attack in basically all of the drums. It's centered around 3K, plus or minus, so it's affecting the different drums differently because of the range that they're tuned. The snare has more stuff in that range than like the floor tom, for instance. But overall, it's the close mics that are really hearing the brunt of the difference. And that translates basically to this being a thing you can do if you're concerned with mellowing things out in the close mics and then sort of bringing in the life of the drums in the overheads and room mics and that kind of thing, because it's not making them any quieter acoustically. It's just kind of taking some of the basketballiness away, taking a bit of the attack away, and rounding out the sound a little bit on everything. Now, earlier I was talking about how the close mics are kind of experiencing this more so than the mics that are further away. This is a phenomenon that we've experienced with other kind of muffling setups, the different things that we've done. The close mics are just receiving a lot more information directly from the drum because they're so close. So this is the sort of thing where in a recording situation or also in a live situation, it's about kind of whether or not you're going to be leaning on the close mics for a significant part of the sound. If you're not, then this isn't going to have that big of an impact. You may be wondering if this is essentially a thing that could be done with EQ in the computer or, or whatever rig that you're using. You can, but we experimented a little bit and we discovered that this retained a more natural sound than when we were actually going in and digitally scooping out chunks of the frequency spectrum of each of the drums. If you're curious about hearing some of these mic comparisons, or rather like miking scheme comparisons for these sounds, you can jump over to the Patreon. We're going to have some alternate mixes that kind of highlight how these behaviors move from the further mics into the closer mics and the way that it kind of works to blend them together. This sort of thing is available on the Dynasonic level at the Patreon, and it's kind of one of the special things that we're saving like for that level and above. All right, it's time for the back-to-back. Now, when we do experimentations with the physics of our instruments and the sound, we're going after these things, it can fall into kind of two camps. There's a problem that needs fixing, and then on the other side, there's just seeing what'll happen and seeing if a cool sound results from it. This was one where we didn't really know what it was going to do when we started with the bass drum, and we discovered that it did some positive things to the sound, and it definitely got on top of a thing we've been talking about recently, which is what they call the basketball-y kind of sound, that reflective kind of pingy thing that can happen in bass drums. Often in floor toms. It can happen in any drum really, but the larger ones without snare wires tend to be the kind of major culprits. There's lots of ways to address this issue. Different kinds of bearing edges do address this differently. Tinfoil, obviously, cloth, maybe bits of foam, whatever, but it's abundantly clear that the origin is the reflectivity of the inside of a cylinder. So that about wraps up this experiment. It's been interesting. It was another one that was kind of subtle. It was a fair amount of work to get it in there and make it look nice, but it's also one that'll stay put once you put it there if you like what it's doing. I think it's going to behave slightly differently with every drum depending on the construction and the way you like to tune, the heads you use, all that stuff. So again, big encouragement to try it out, see what it does. It's cheap, it's non-invasive. And it certainly was rad in the bass drum. I like that bit a lot. So please like, comment, and subscribe. Thanks for watching. Hit the notification button below so you get notifications about all of our new videos. We are still rocking and rolling on Tuesdays at 12:30 p.m. Eastern Time, along with Snare spotlights, lots of other things coming up, tons of extra stuff on the Patreon. Please follow the link below and check out those things too, see if any of the levels work for you, see what the perks are and the things that we have going on over there. And lastly, I guess I already asked it about the bass drum, but any other tinfoil or aluminum foil stories, aluminium foil stories about your drums? Because when we get away from the idea of fixing an issue and get into the idea of just like seeing what would happen, I can imagine a lot of uses for this kind of material on the drums that would just be super fun. And I know I'm going to try out a few myself for sure.